But let's start off with today and very, very quickly go into the future. I think we're actually in a very privileged time. We're looking at a recession, we've got loads of problems ahead of us and stuff for the next few years. But in the long term, they really pale into insignificance. We've always had, thanks to technology, from areas like this, we've seen a background growth of 2.5%, 3% caused by improving technology. And that is still happening in the background. The engineers haven't stopped inventing just because we're in a recession. They still wake up in the middle of the night with a brilliant new idea. And when the accountant finally gives them some cash, they'll develop it. So that latent improvement is building up in the background. Now, people talk about having a second dip. Of course we're going to have a second dip. We've always had dips. We get a dip every few years, regardless of what happens. I call this the Loch Ness Monster recovery. We're going to see a second dip, a third dip, a fourth dip, a fifth dip, but those dips are superimposed on a background exponential curve which is going upwards. So by 2060, regardless of recession, regardless of future recessions, you will still be twice as well off as you were before this recession started. So there's really nothing to worry about in the long term. The singularity is going to be part of that. We're going to see an awful lot of invention by computers in the next 15, 20 years. Computers are getting smart enough already to invent things. By 2025, most inventions will be done by computer. By 2030, almost all of them will be done by computer. We can just sit on the beach and read poetry, and the computers get on with all of the work and do the real inventing stuff. But there's another side of things that people worry about as well, and that's the increasing population. We keep hearing how the world population is going to go to 9.5, even 10 billion by 2050, 2060. What people always forget is that every new brain which exists is another brain which can come up with new solutions. You get a population premium. If you've got twice as many people, you get twice as many ideas. Population growth is a good thing. You know, sure, it puts more weight on the environment in the short term, but those people will come up with ideas that reduce that weight, and we end up reducing the weight to almost zero. So don't worry about population. We'll also see lots of things like space tourism and asteroid mining and all sorts of other fancy things in the 2060 timeframe. I could spend all evening wittering on about those, but I'm not going to, because we know about space tourism, and you're going to have asteroid mining. Of course we will. We'll also not have to worry too much about sustainability because of some other things. Today you've got a mobile phone which weighs about 100 grams, and it does all of the same stuff that 1.5 tons of electronics did back in 1990, 1991. You've saved 1.5 tons of environmental impact by having a mobile phone. Sure, you throw your mobile phone on the bin every 6 months and buy a new one, but what that's doing is forcing you down to the point where the mobile phone disappears and gets replaced by a tiny little piece of jewelry which does every single thing that every piece of IT you own today, and yet it's the size of an earring stud or a little bit of your wristwatch strap or a lapel pin or something like that. Digital jewelry can replace all of it in the next 15, 20, 30 years. So where do we go from that? Well, once you've got your 3D farms and you're developing lots of energy technology that can make skyscraper farms, we don't need to worry about where the food's going to come from. You can use tissue culturing to make the meats and stuff. You can have vegetarian turkeys for Christmas. The vegetarian turkey is produced in a laboratory somewhere. It's never seen another turkey. It doesn't never seen anything because it didn't have any eyes, it didn't have a head, but you just use the tissue culturing. Technologies like that sound very science fiction, but they're already in development even today. Lots of companies are looking at doing exactly that. Well, that's quite boring stuff. Let's start looking at some more interesting things. Thank you, Tony, for mentioning the active contact lens. One of my inventions in 1991, when I was looking at Moore's Law and how much we could miniaturize lasers and things, I realized back then that eventually we'd get to the point where you could make a contact lens with all the display circuitry built in there to produce a raster scan onto your retina, so you see a full high-definition 3D display superimposed into your retina. from a contact lens. The contact lens weighs a fraction of a gram, so it's got zero environmental impact. It's using microwatts of power, so again, it's got zero environmental impact from that point of view. Already, the technology exists today to work out what you're dreaming about. You can already play a video of what you're dreaming about. In 20, 30, 40 years' time, that'll be really old hat. If I know what you're dreaming about, I can start putting images into your contact lenses which make your dreams a lot better. I can start linking this idea that you're dreaming about having, some romantic liaison with this other person, and they're probably thinking about you too. You can link that together and make it all happen across the network while you're fast asleep. Even while you're asleep, your life could be much more fun. It really begs the question, how close can you get to somebody else? You can link your dreams in there. You can link the sensations together. You can record the sensations, replay them. If you're cuddling somebody, you can feel how they're feeling that cuddle, as well as how you're feeling it. But let's get a bit further into the future. We're probably about 2035, 2040 by now. Let's get a bit further, 2050, 2060. Nanotech, biotech, information technology, and cognitive technology are really starting to come together in the 2060 timeframe. So what can you do with it? Well, by then, you've got all sorts of cosmetic links which increase your IQ, increase your memory. Why? Because you've got to solve Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease and lots of other things. So we'll have developed all of that for medical reasons, and gradually it becomes something you do for cosmetic reasons. So we start experimenting, and we start linking stuff to your brain and making you smarter, recording your experiences, replaying them and stuff. It's all good fun, but at some point we start linking your brain to computers which in the background are starting to get much, much smarter than you are. I reckon that by about 2020 we'll have PCs as smart as people. By 2040, 2050, 2060, those PCs are millions of times smarter than you, and yet you could link your brain to those. So you become much smarter too. If you can do that, and I don't think it's that big an if, you will get a very, very powerful new wave of technology which makes people very different. But you've got to prove it's safe. How do you prove it's safe? Well, you experiment on a few computer models, and then at some point you've actually got to start experimenting on a few animals. So you get a couple of hamsters or laboratory rats or something. You've got to connect them to this ultra-smart computing infrastructure. At some point, your chief executive is going to be a hamster, because the hamster will have an IQ which makes your current chief executive look pretty dumb. Some of you are thinking, well, he already is, so what's the difference? The same technology allows you to go a little bit further. You think, well, nature needs a bit of assistance too. We all like pandas. We use pandas as the classic example of an animal we want to protect. Pandas are not doing very well because pandas have a crap sex life. Pandas work in IT. It's as simple as that. Supposing we take a panda and we redesign its genetics, which will be well within the capabilities of 2060 technology. You could give the panda far better libido. Let's put a GPS chip straight into the panda's brain and link that to the net as some sort of panda dating site so it knows exactly where the female panda is. They can get together. It's already broken the ice, and she's ready, he's ready, so they can produce more nice new pandas. We can solve the panda problem. Panda 2.0 will be a lot better. Of course, in the same time frame, artificial intelligence is moving on. We're starting to see artificial intelligence want to take part in the real world too. We will see artificial intelligence smarter than people. We will see conscious machines. Why? Because we already know in principle how to design some of those things. I'd be very surprised indeed if we don't see conscious machines in the next 20 years. The most likely place they're going to come from is MIT. MIT is full of students that have got a good sense of humor and like messing around. And the guys working in AI degrees are talking to the guys in biology degrees, talking to the other guys in nanotech degrees. And some of those have got some friends who play with computers and stuff. They're going to be linking this together and messing around with consciousness viruses on the net, using millions of computers all linked together in a self-organized matrix. And they will be trying to develop consciousness. And they will succeed. And if they don't, somebody else will for military reasons. So what can they do? Once you start getting computers which are much smarter than people, they will have their own culture. They'll have their own designs on the future. We might be in the way. So the Terminator scenario springs out. In order to solve the Terminator scenario, you have to come up with a technology which allows you to link the human brain into this ultra-smart computer brain. You have to do this. It's essential if you want to survive. So that technology will be developed. But what happens if it goes just a little bit wrong? You could, and this is one of the weapons of mass destruction I was looking at for the military last year. It's really quite good fun. You could come up with this new technology called smart yogurt. You could, for example, use genetic technology to redesign bacteria so they could assemble electronic components in each bacterial cell. And you can use self-organization technology to link them all together into scalable circuits. So you get something like a yogurt. You produce one of these and it costs billions of pounds to design, but then you put it in some milk and it breeds and you end up with a yogurt. And that yogurt's got billions or trillions of these bacteria in, lots and lots of electronics, all linking together into some superhuman capability. How superhuman? Well, we did the basic physics and maths calculations on this. You could make a yogurt by 2060 with the same IQ as Europe. That's how big this intelligence gulf could be. That yogurt might not like you very much. It could design all sorts of offspring which can work their way into your nervous system, link to different parts of your brain, and basically subvert you. So you're very happy about it. You think this is a wonderful thing, but you are then a zombie. So part of the future human evolution timeline is that we might see zombies as part of our future humans. I would like to think that we get the Homo cyberneticus, where you link your brain to the machine, Homo hybridus, where you've got a genetically modified body which is wonderfully brilliant, and it's also got a brain the size of a planet, and then we end up with Homo machinus and so on, nice and clean. No, zombies. Zombies of the future. So, is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing? I don't know. It's a value judgment, and that's not really my job. It's my job to tell you how bad the future could be and how good the future could be. It's you guys that have got to decide what you decide to develop. There is one warning I'm going to leave you with, though. This technology is going to be really quite esoteric. Most people will not understand it. Most people today can't understand how their TV set works. A lot of you could understand how your last TV worked. It had a cathode ray tube in there, and it was a dawdle. You know, it was very easy. A few magnets, steer a beam along, and you've got a thing. How does a plasma TV work? How does the LED TV work? Well, some people can explain that, but most people can't. We're heading into a new world, which I think is an IT dark age in some regards, where the technology and the knowledge and the know-how is so concentrated in such a small percentage of the population. We're in real danger of reinventing the civilizations from 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years ago, where there was a high priest who was in contact with this supposed god, and whatever he said went. And you know, those high priests were quite powerful. We're in a real danger here of creating a new dark age where the scientists and the engineers who know it all, how it all works, reinvent themselves as the high priests and high priestesses of the future. I don't know how you protect against that. It's ego, it's human nature. We have to protect against it. We have to protect mankind from our own egos. So yes, we can have a wonderful future, but all of us, we could really screw it up if we don't keep control of our own egos. We have to keep society and the well-being of the rest of humanity very much in the forefront as we steer into this brave new world. Thank you for listening.